Tensions rising in Germany following a string of violent sexual assaults on New Year's Eve. The country's open-door refugee policy now under firm attack after it was revealed that most of the suspects were asylum seekers. Over the weekend, anti-immigration protests took a violent turn. You can see some of it right there on the screen. Protesters clashing with authorities. There were also several retaliatory assaults on immigrants. Gina, Tammy, and Jillian are back with us. Tammy, let me ask you this. Angela Merkel's canceled her trip to Davos. She was very adamant about this open arm policy, taking in 1 million migrants last year. And, you know, there are a lot of reasons for it, whether you say it's compassion, whether you say it's an economic issue because of the birth rates in Germany, whatever it is, she's being forced now to really rethink this whole thing.
Yeah, and look, politicians don't suggest things that they don't really have support for in general, at least half. So the European people have also thought this was a good idea. The Germans certainly did as well. Part of the reason, though, they did is because nobody talks about the truth of the matter, about what's going on in the Middle East, what the dynamic is, what the Muslim migrants, refugees are fleeing from, if they really are refugees. All of those conversations are forbidden. And what you've got as a result is a cultural dynamic like the rapes in Cologne, but actually assaults that occurred in every major city in Germany on New Year's Eve comes from what we saw in, as an example, Tahrir Square in Cairo. In general, in Middle Eastern countries where you have these packs of men, where it's effectively a rape culture, where this dynamic occurs, and that has been imported. But because we're not allowed to speak about the truth, about the nature of what's occurring in this decline, in this meltdown of the Middle East, then we just pretend that it's not going to occur there. So this is what we're seeing here. It's there, and now this is the end result of it. And of course, they've lived in a fantasy world. Now they have to face reality.
We've seen where Denmark and Sweden went two separate ways with respect to immigration policy, migrant policy. Denmark being a lot more conservative. Now Sweden actually adopting some of those principles. Feels like Germany's have to come around too. What would they do? Because last week you made a suggestion that perhaps a brand new policy that focuses primarily on women and children, as opposed to these working, able-bodied men who should probably be fighting for their country rather than seeking a welfare program.
That's the way I'd like to see it pan out. And that's because I think what we're seeing happen on the streets of Germany is just a glimpse into the horror that is the life of women in the Middle East. I think many of these women are fleeing for very legitimate reasons, are refugees. But I think there's a balance between compassion and realism, compassion and national security. Now, we've been very cautious in the United States. In Europe, though, you've seen countries, Germany in particular being the ringleader, not even abiding by European Union policy. I think they've created all of these incentives to bring as many people in. And it's little doubt that with that much uncontrolled immigration, you're going to have huge issues. You
know, Gina, we talk about the vetting process with the Syrian refugees and other refugees from areas that are controlled by terrorists. It's one thing to say, hey, I looked at the prison, you know, the criminal record, I've looked at all of these things. How do you vet a culture that could be dangerous to America?
You can't. You plain, simple can't. And the science is on my side in this, Charles. And it's not just, by the way, the terror threat. Let's go back to, I live in San Diego, for example, and just from the illegal immigrants that come into San Diego, we have infectious disease issues that we are dealing with that are swept under the rug by major media. So I have to give you major kudos for covering this issue, because much of the media completely ignores all the issues surrounding this. And the thing that still makes no sense to me, even for the women and children, just because of the disease issues, if you take the terror out of it, why not help these people there? That's the part I don't get. Why do they need to go anywhere? That part makes no sense to me.
Well, you know what? Everyone's rethinking their policies. That may be, I'm sure that's on the table somewhere. All right, guys, thank you very much. Philadelphia police now probing a tip